Oh, hello. Welcome to the 2013 Hundie Challenge. Today we're going to be discussing Any Port in a Storm by Arnold Rothstein. Dee-doo-dee-doo-doo, dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo, dee-doo-dee-doo-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-doo-doo. So I don't talk about this much. I certainly haven't brought it up so far in this challenge, in these videos. I grew up in a Jewish town. Very, very heavily Jewish. So, I was always really familiar with the culture. Everyone turned 13 and we all, we got to go to all the bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. And it was just never that odd to us. Being in such a Jewish town, we had like matzahs at Passover in the cafeteria at school, and we got Rosh Hashanah off, and sometimes Rosh Hashanah falls on my birthday, which is really cool. Growing up like that, we learned a lot in school about anti-Semitism and the Holocaust, and that was I would assume it was rather different from the average education, but also a lot of it was kind of intellectual to us because we didn't understand, because all of our friends and girlfriends and boyfriends and everything were Jewish, so it was really odd to imagine people still being anti-Semitic today. That being said, I'm not myself Jewish. I would not claim to know what it's like, but I'm pretty familiar with the culture and intellectually and all that sort of thing. I didn't know what Portnoy's complaint was about until I picked it up. I think I'd maybe heard about it in the back of my mind. But this is the most Jewish book I've ever read. And I've read, Night by Elie Wiesel. I've read The Fixer. There's a lot of literature that we had to read and that I myself have just read, about Jewish culture and that sort of thing. This is, specifically about the American Jew. I have no doubt that Roth's intent was to kind of try and encompass the entire, let's say, the psychological makeup, if nothing else, of what it means to be Jewish in America in a single volume. And in that sense, he was very successful. I'm surprised he actually covered a lot of ground in somewhat less than 300 pages. That being said, this is also the most perverse book I've ever read, and that's to include Tropic of Cancer, which I discussed earlier in this challenge. For some reason, and you can debate me in the comments if you feel otherwise, I feel like this was more transgressive. Miller was very forthright about his obsession with women and cheap women and having sex all the time and disregarding women. Portnoy's complaint was, I felt like it was much more transgressive because it really addressed some of the Oedipal complaints that the fictional character Portnoy's complaint is the fictional disease, which is named after the character as he is talking to his psychiatrist or psychologist. So the deep Oedipal urges that Portnoy feels are transgressive, and he talks extensively about masturbation, and almost a sort of a voyeuristic masturbation, which I'm not going to say, we all masturbate, it's not a big deal, but he sort of wants to get caught. He's sort of obsessed with he's using his sister's bra to masturbate to, and I'm sure it's not a challenge. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe Roth said to himself, I want to write something more transgressive than Tropic of Cancer. I don't know. But I did feel that way. I'm not like a shrinking lily or anything about sexual content. But this one's not for the kids, and it's not for the lighthearted. But that being said, Portnoy himself is a very, disturbed individual. But I think that's because he, as a character, is an amalgam, let's say, of every trait that Roth has observed in the American Jew. I feel like every, it would almost be racist. It would almost be like bigoted if it wasn't, if it didn't ring so true. Like, I feel like if I wrote a book like this, it would come off really racist, or anti-Semitic. But like Portnoy, he goes on about his nose and having the Jewish nose. He goes on about, being circumcised and how that affects him, and about his mother being a shrew and his father being constipated, and what it's like to never be able to have a conversation because everybody's shouting at each other, and his parents are obsessed with doctors. And it's all the sort of things that, growing up as I did in suburban Philly in a very Jewish area, we understood to be all the stereotypes of, growing up Jewish. In a way, by condensing them down and packing them down, I understand that Roth is trying to make a comment on the whole kind of culture. And he kind of brings it all together at the end. What happens is Portnoy goes back to Israel and meets the Israelis, and he realizes how ordinary they are compared to the diaspora Jews, compared to the ones that have lived in America or lived in Europe and so on. And in that way, he even pulls in kind of an even broader Jewish experience. I feel like this was, not knowing anything else about it, I feel like this was Roth's attempt to capture the Jewish experience, such as you can with 5,000 years of culture, in a slim volume. And, he ends the book by saying, hey, just because Portnoy's this way, and just because American Jews are this way, doesn't mean like that's the be-all, end-all of the Jewish experience, because there's also these Israelis who kind of look down on Portnoy and kind of tell him he's a shitbag, and he can't even perform sexually for them. And since his whole identity has been the whole time so caught up in his, libido, that kind of says how he, almost how he recognizes that to be true. Because for the whole rest of the book, he can't refrain from masturbating publicly. He's constantly, giving in to his libido until he comes back to the Holy Land and finds that he suffers from impotence. Because everything that he thought was fundamental to him about being Jewish, like being excluded from the greater American culture, he realizes that in Israel he could have a place here, but he's now so kind of, twisted by his case of Portnoy's complaint that he doesn't know that he could become part of that culture. Like I said, surprisingly deep, and humorous, including the punchline, which I will leave to you to get to. A surprisingly complete, like I said, kind of a condensed, boiled down version of the Jewish experience in 300 pages, very slim volume. And let me know what you thought of it, or what you thought of this video in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.